projection.
Hello and welcome to Taking It Down, the pop culture podcast from analytical Alabama, TV-loving minds. I am your host, Plain Duncan. I often wonder why I like what I like and why I hate what I hate when it comes to pop culture. I'm also an English teacher who is always looking to see how films, TV, books, and music are put together and taken apart. It all stems from the fact that I was once a kid who grew up in front of a television set with a radio playing. That's not even mentioning your co-host. With me is an erudite musician with a penchant for some deep reading and fine literature, as well as another host who is a media specialist and a film buff who has so much encyclopedic knowledge on such a variety of things that I can't begin to list them. For this week's Taking It Down episode, it seems as though we're going to stay in the world of fantasy. That might be the best thing for us, for everyone. I don't know. We're going to discuss the entirety of Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series as a whole. Spoiler warning. Also another spoiler warning for the second segment, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. It just saw a release on Disney Plus last week, so hopefully that got everybody who did not see it in the theater a chance to play catch up. We provide you with plenty of summer party conversations, or just count us as your pals who've watched that movie that you did last night. We're your buds. Here they are. Let's just introduce our co-host. On one side of me, it's a guy who has no problem running the mile in under 20 minutes. Adam Morrow.
What human being couldn't move a mile in less than 20 minutes? If the push came to shove. Come on.
The other host of Taking It Down is a fine gentleman who has a lot of trouble running a mile in under 20 minutes.
I didn't actually
Donovan
know you were going to say that. I wasn't trying to set you up there.
You were almost nudged yourself in on the punchline. So, hey Donovan.
Great to be here, Blaine.
Donovan, we got to get those easy miles in for you. We can shave some minutes off that PB on the mile.
I kid. I'm sure Donovan can run a. What do we think, Donovan? 10-minute mile?
I think a 25 to 35 minute mile is pretty good.
My goodness. We will begin with our Done It Real Good Listener of the Week. This week, I'd like to say that we will give this listener for sure a Dilly Bar is coming this person's way. It's going to be provided by Adam because our Listener of the Week is Natalie Morrow.
Huzzah!
Huzzah for her. She's the Done It Real Good Listener of the Week. You're thinking, but isn't she one of the co-hosts? Yes, but she's out of town. She's nowhere near a microphone. She claims to listen every week, even if she's on the show. So surely she's listening. You know, and even better, perhaps Adam can provide her with a Dilly Bar. Swing through the DQ drive-thru on your way from the airport.
I was at DQ like 2 nights ago, and I just could not stop. And ours is a walk-up DQ. And I just could not stop laughing. Everyone around me just kept looking at me like a maniac because I couldn't stop laughing, just thinking like Dilly Bar.
Did you get one?
No, I got a Blizzard. I was in the mood for a Blizzard.
Tell me your flavor.
New York, like Royal New York cheesecake.
It's a good one.
Old Hayden used to play a little bass with the Colonel. I don't know if you guys are fans of the Kern. I'm a big fan.
Mm-hmm.
He has a song called The Old Taco Bell, in which he imagines a future where things have gotten bleak enough that he starts buying up out-of-business Taco Bells and retrofitting them as condominium units. And he name-checks a few Taco Bell menu items in it, and I think one is a Nachos Bel Grande. It's some item that when they were on tour, they stopped at a Taco Bell, and it came out that no one in the van with him had actually eaten this item, and he insisted on buying the entire band, whatever the item was. And Donovan, I'm disappointed that you didn't go Dilly Bars all around for the crew that you went to Dairy Queen with.
Just do like the next round's on me, fellers. Dilly Bars for all.
Dilly Bars for all.
Dilly Bars all around.
Incensed that they never had one and that they don't listen to the take and understand it.
They make them in flavors, right? Like you can get them in like Butterfinger Dilly Bar now or something.
The hell you say?
Can you?
I think.
I thought it was just normal Dilly Bar.
Well, you know, times change.
Donovan, you were just a Dairy Queen. How do you not know this?
Well, I wasn't looking for the Dilly. Well, because the only one I saw was like I was
Dilly Classic,
the Dilly Bar laughing, and I saw the Dilly Classic, and then it was like under like stuff you can take home, like Dilly Bar, and I kept. The people there thought I was insane. The poor high school kids working there were just like.
You should have let them in on the joke. They appreciate a good Dilly Bar joke.
I think that the setup would have been too long for the punchline because I would have had to explain too much.
Like what a podcast was?
Explaining to some of my students that podcasts are free and they don't have to delete that app off their iPhone is kind of funny.
That old app has gotten me before because if you have a passing interest in something, if you have it set up the wrong way, say you listen to one or two select soccer podcasts in your free time or while you're jogging, all of a sudden there's a giant backlog of auto-downloaded material. I don't much appreciate that.
Yeah, you gotta mess with the settings, but it's free. That's the funny thing. They thought you had to pay for them.
Am I making money off podcasts?
I mean, Jesus, let me in on this. I encourage our listeners to use timestamps found in show notes and on the podcast app that you might be getting a ton of downloads from. If you listen to the AlabamaTake.com, you can see the timestamps there as well. We're going to spoil both topics today, as I mentioned. Let's start with the 6-episode series on Disney+. It's concluded. It's up for grabs. We're talking about it's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And how'd the final episode suit you?
Endings are hard.
You're not for it?
Not for what? No, not for what?
This particular ending? Part 6 of Obi-Wan Kenobi?
For whatever reason, and I dreaded coming into this because I didn't have a super great reason for what I'm going to say, but this one felt somewhat less than the sum of its parts. I was underwhelmed. We got a cool lightsaber fight, we got a redemptive moment for Third Sister, we got all that kind of stuff, and yet I was still just it was fine. I wasn't blown away.
It does seem like this one maybe could have been rolled into I don't want to say rolled into the previous one, but like it was a longer runtime than it needed to be. The lightsaber fight was awesome. I thought Obi-Wan coming back to power was cool. Both of them being at the top of their game. You know, again, we've seen a few marquee matchups as far as lightsaber duels go, but on this level where they're throwing rocks at each other, all this it was all very fun, and I thought that it was shot well. I mean, I kind of thought about that towards the end of this episode. All the mirroring that they did with the original 3, you know, having Vader back on the bridge commanding the starship and it following Obi-Wan's little vessel, all that was a lot of fun. It looked great, but it kind of Tolkien'd the ending. It just wouldn't end. If endings are hard, they put in a few too many.
I think they tried to introduce stuff, especially with Luke and Owen and Beru. It just it felt like it sort of came out of nowhere. Like it was just almost filler content. Obviously, Third Sister's thing is the tie-in for it, but they didn't set it up or anything. It's just, we just got Luke right at the end of the 5th episode as our hint that we're going to have something's going to go down with him.
I think I liked it better than you. Because it gave Reva something to do, the actress who plays her, something to do besides be menacing and angry. She got more emotive, and I thought I was for that. I liked the showdown between Vader and Obi-Wan for the reasons you guys mentioned, but also one of my favorite things was it's fun when a show or movie like this can play with the mythos and not retcon it or fuck it up too bad. So when he strikes Vader and busts the helmet open and gives him the scar that you see at the end of Return of the Jedi, like that's the
yeah.
I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool because that probably wasn't there until this happened. Giving Hayden Christensen a little more to do, hearing his actual voice blended with a few key words that were in the Vader, James Earl Jones voice. I just thought that all that was pretty cool. Tacking on endings, I think that I would have been upset if it didn't do resolutions on a few of those things. So
now the Vader Obi-Wan thing kind of felt unresolved to me, because I guess it's maybe it's supposed to be Obi-Wan being a Jedi, right? Like, we preserve life, we don't take life. But he had Vader. He could have ended him right there
twice now,
and he chose not to.
You just got to see it through. You can't. This is the good guy equivalent of over-explaining, like a villain over-explaining their motives. You know.
You know what? You're absolutely right, because and it's sort of a stupid complaint, right? Because I know Vader can't die.
Right.
Sure.
He should have done something where he felt like, okay, I killed him, and then like later he realizes he didn't.
I think it was important that he showed mercy in that moment, because now he has Anakin or Vader, however you want to read it, will never beat Obi-Wan in an actual matchup. You know, we know that probably the next time they meet is when Obi-Wan kind of gives himself up. And I think that's important, that he walked away knowing that he was alive, one, and two, knowing that he showed mercy, that he could have ended it there. Now, what that says about the balance of how important is their ongoing thing compared to the body count that Vader's going to rack up between these fights, yeah, a little iffy.
It felt a little bit like he was walking away from Space Hitler, you know, like...
Yeah.
Yeah.
My tangles with Space Hitler aren't over. It's like, well, but just kill Hitler.
Yeah. Yeah. It wasn't like Obi-Wan was sparing him, you know, because he thought there was still good in him or something like that, because he said, my friend is truly lost there. So it just felt a little... This is me nitpicking, which I think is very easy for me to do with these Star Wars things. Because I think it's really easy for me to nitpick, because everything is so familiar that you can kind of hyper-focus on these little details, these little things that just bug you.
I saw someone point out another possible thing they were doing with the world of Skywalker, etc., and it's that the last thing Obi-Wan ever sees, and I suppose accepts death maybe, or realizes that what he's done is okay. You know, it's in A New Hope. He looks over his shoulder and he sees Leia and Luke reunited for the first time since birth. And, you know, that's something that maybe this show helps underscore a little.
I thought the setup for A New Hope that they did, the legwork, you know, you pointed out that it didn't really step on the previous mythos. It just kind of complemented in this really nice, and I totally agree. And we've talked about how much more meaningful some of Leia's lines about Obi-Wan are in A New Hope now with this whole backstory. But wow, I hadn't thought about that moment. Like the classic, if you strike me down, Darth, I'll become more powerful than you can imagine, however he phrases that, and seeing that the job is done. This particular job is done. It's good stuff.
Right. His part of the work is over.
I told y'all I love the Jedi mystical shit. I'm here for it.
I was more here for it in this series for whatever reason. Maybe it's just Ian McGregor.
He's so good.
I think he just sells it. Something about Ian McGregor being like, Jedi save life, not take. And I'm like, yes, now this is what Jedi are. I get it.
Remind me of some of the tacked on resolutions they did. We had him going back, getting Leia home, talking to her parents. What am I forgetting?
We had the Uncle Owen, do you want to meet Luke tacked on thing, where he gives him the starfighter that he's playing with.
It does make a little of Luke's dialogue in A New Hope odd, right? That he feels like that's a complete stranger.
It makes some of Leia's dialogue, too, a little odd, you know, because in that initial message in A New Hope, she's like, General Kenobi, you know, you served with my father in the Clone Wars. Now it's like, and, you know, we met 9-ish years ago.
Had some hijinks together.
and you helped me out.
Huh. Yeah.
Maybe my problem with the endings wasn't that they existed. It's that because Obi-Wan had to be in 3 endings, it kind of made the timeline feel a little jumpy. You know what I mean? Like, he had to have his scene with Vader while also facing the clock and getting back to Tatooine to potentially save Luke. It's just a lot of like jumpiness, I guess, in narrative.
Yeah.
That on the surface I have no problem with. Just as a watching experience, it was maybe a little clunky.
Now, I've been complaining this whole time about this, and I'll say I actually, if I'm going to sum up the show, I'd say I had it was a fun watch, and it was a good hang. Don't let my complaints let you think that I didn't enjoy a lot of the stuff that they did during the show. I've been a little frustrated with Marvel and Star Wars shows just because I feel like the writing is not where it could be. I mean, Disney has more money than God, I guess. Why are we not having Breaking Bad caliber writing for everything? I guess the reason there is because people wouldn't watch that.
I don't know.
But
I've wondered as much too, and it's a question of, can you do that with superhero stuff? We'll get into that more in the next segment because it's something I've thought about.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, let's take a break so that on the other side we can talk just a little bit more Obi-Wan and definitely Doctor Strange. Okay, this is our break for the show where we really don't advertise per se, but try to update you on all the goings-on of our home site, thealabamatate.com. Our sister podcast, family of podcasts are going strong. Alabama Slam is one of those. Listen as superfan Corey Hanna and former indie wrestler Patrick Akers analyze the world of wrestling, particularly AEW. Find it on our site or at any podcast app. We've teased This Song Sucks. It's the podcast where three musician friends dissect what's wrong with a specific song. Its new season is on the horizon. Now that June is over, maybe the new season will be coming at you sooner than later. Subscribe to YouTube channel because all of the podcasts are there. Even better though, for such a visual medium such as YouTube, the second season of the interview talk show Short Takes is going to be there every Friday morning for a few Fridays in a row. Most recently, I got to talk with W. Kamau Bell for a little, which was a delight. Very interesting talk. We got lots of stuff going on the alabamatate.com. If you are curious on keeping up with when new things happen, go to Facebook, go to Twitter, go to Instagram, TikTok, all of them follow the Alabama Take, and you will get timely news from us. We're back from a little break, talking about that problem of Star Wars and Marvel, and maybe DC a little bit. Donovan talked about why is it the caliber of writing as great as prestige television, you chose Breaking Bad, but take your pick, The Sopranos or Deadwood. And I think, is that not what DC tries and fails at?
They definitely try and fail at being darker, right?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they fail at being darker, but I think that's like their brand. Like if Marvel is the sunny side of the street, then DC's the bad part of town.
And that's a huge part of their stumbling is that they think that's what makes up a good writing or prestige level.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that, because that's actually been that was a complaint in comic books back when even Alan Moore kind of helped inaugurate a more adult time of comic books, but he and others would complain that all that it did was open the door to comic books where sex and violence made it quote unquote adult, instead of these are comic books for adults about adult things with adult themes.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's been DC's issue. It's just swear words and violence that makes something for adults.
Yeah, in their movies, yeah, especially.
Yeah, in their movies. I can't speak to their TV shows because I don't really watch them.
We've all watched Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. If you haven't, then you're going to want to come back to this segment and after you have. What did you think of it overall?
I feel like these films where there's they're engaging with the multiverse and ideas like that, or messing with time or whatever it is, are they just out of other ideas. Like, it's a clever concept at first, you know? Like, it's like, this is fun. I thought, the Spider-Verse was fun. All the Spider-Man stuff of recent has been a lot of fun. But just kind of like, what's going on, guys? What are we up to here? I had fun. It was fun, and it looked really good, and it's a vehicle to make really cool-looking stuff. You know, like, I totally get that, and I'm bummed that I never got to see it on the big screen. We're discussing it now because some of us had to wait until it hit Disney Plus to talk about it, but I'm sure it looked fantastic there. And as with most Marvel movies, it was still good. I still enjoyed it. It was maybe a step above my least favorite Marvel flicks.
Just a step above.
I got to think more about it. Maybe that's a credit to the movie that I'm still kind of like parsing through. It wasn't obviously on that top tier where like the credits roll and you're like, that was a great movie, regardless of if this is a Marvel film, a superhero film, whatever. It's not there. But I mean, they attempted to kind of continue that conversation. They attempted to do some heavier lifting than maybe we would have expected from comic book movies 15 years ago. But when the bar is as high as it is now, to outdo yourself which is kind of why I brought up the multiverse thing. Mm-hmm. Like, the need to be complex and to be thought-provoking in this specific way. I don't know that it always serves the story. Kind of like what Donovan was saying about sex and drugs and whatever other quote-unquote adult things don't necessarily make an adult story.
I think the multiverse thing is supposed to be their goal for this phase. And I talked about this phase of the Marvel. They try to compact their shows and movies into these segments. I haven't figured out what this overarching goal of this phase is, other than to open up that multiverse. I really don't know. I'm sure there are other fans. This is where we really hurt without Natalie here, is where she can probably pinpoint. I think phase 4 is supposed to be this as a whole. I think they've dropped the ball on what they want out of this phase, other than opening up all these universes and playing with time idea to supposedly propel it forward, and I don't think it is.
Yeah, you're coming off the heels of like maybe the greatest success that a franchise, the coming together of multiple franchises has ever accomplished. You know, I mean, the whole in-game Thanos saga was so good, and so, you know, one of the few couple movies where like literally everybody's talking about that. That doesn't really happen that much anymore, and they pulled it off then, and it just feels like everything has been in the shadow of that.
Makes this phase feel haphazard.
Yep, exactly what you just said, Blaine. This movie for me was, to go back to that Martin Scorsese quote that made everyone mad 2-3 years ago. This one, it was like a theme park ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought some parts of it were really fun. Getting the Illuminati in there was super fun. Getting to see some of our old friends or variants of, like Captain Marvel has been different characters or different people throughout the run of the characters. So that was a variant on Captain Marvel.
Uh-huh.
Sam Raimi is a director who obviously has a lot of fun doing horror stuff. So I thought, especially towards the end, just the visual flair of it got really exciting. But I'm going to steal this from Brian. I think it's Tallarico on RogerEbert.com. I read his review of it, and his thing was these movies promise strangeness, and they promise, something outside the normal. And the problem is, it's just not that strange. Everything is kind of conventional. Even like the characters' motivations and all that kind of stuff is just kind of one-dimensional.
I don't disagree with that. I think I'm the only person who's watched this movie twice out of the three of us. And I'll say that my initial viewing in the theater was that the first 45 minutes was a real mess, and the rest of it finally fell into place. Sam Raimi talked about this openly, how the script was being written as they were doing it. As they were filming, they would get a new page of script every other day or something. And I felt that heavily upon my first viewing. Upon second viewing, I don't know that it's not a little better. If you think about how they're writing it on the fly and you watch it again, it's pretty cool that it's as good as it is.
There's just no reason
to be doing that. No,
there's no reason they should be doing that. There's just no.
Exactly, and it goes back to what you were saying about writing. The writing,
yeah.
Why is it not elevated? Yeah. Why is it not set in stone? COVID, honestly, and they had to rewrite things because they ended up releasing WandaVision before they thought they would or something like that. I can't remember some of it. Anyway, it has to work inside of a bigger puzzle. It has to be a piece or two of a larger puzzle that's going on. The Illuminati thing, though, that's a fun way of having your cake and eating it too, where you get to cast John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, but you don't have to go back to that if you don't want.
Right.
As well as those other, a lot of other things that were happening, having the Black Bolt guy appear from that disastrous ABC, I think it was ABC television show.
It was ABC.
It was horrible. It's probably the worst thing I've ever watched all the way through. My disappointment, especially on second watch, is that I would have liked for it rather to be a horror movie rather than just in visuals. And you know, there are horror visuals happening, which is Sam Raimi's touch, and you can really spot his touch in the second watch. I wanted it to actually be scary rather than just horror visually.
I think I agree with you on that. Like, there were parts where he was borrowing like horror stings and stuff like that, and parts of it were, I think he was. Is it Drag Me to Hell, where he's got the souls of the damned were sort of reminiscent of Drag Me to Hell.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was never really scary, and it was never. Which, I mean, you're making it so kids can go see it, I guess, which is why.
Yeah.
But Marvel movies that get to kind of play with genre, and they really just play. They kind of.
Right.
I think usually skim the surface, and they don't. But horror is something that they've never really tried.
Right.
And I think that would be cool to see.
You're right. When it was being filmed, the tease was that it was going to be their first horror movie, but it really wasn't.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, I think, with Doctor Strange in this multiverse movie is there's so many really great parts, but when you put it all together, it was just kind of an okay movie at best. It really does look good on the second viewing. Like, it looks good. There are parts, even the CGI stuff, which can be overdone, looked good. I really do think, though, that having Elizabeth Olsen as the antagonist was a brilliant choice. I think she carried the movie. She needs her own movie to try to work out that stuff about her sons. It's still a scar, I think, and how could it not be? It makes sense. If you take away someone's kids, then that's really a fine a plot device, if you want to call it that. I don't think it deserves to be called a plot device because it works even better than that term alludes to.
Yeah, she was good. Watching her be the villain, did it change the end of WandaVision for you, though? Or was it just like WandaVision was just an extension of the trauma that she was showing throughout WandaVision?
Yeah, that's the way I read it. Yeah.
Okay.
Adam, I felt like you were going to comment on Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah, and I was just going to say how great she was and how you talking about that as her kids as a plot device. She even has that line in it where they say, well, you just how you just created your kids out of nothing, something like that. And she said, doesn't every mother do that? I can't remember the exact phrasing, but
he says you magic. You did it out of magic.
Oh, right. Which was a little, if this were a prestige show, we may go, oh, that's a little cliche, but it's not. It's a Marvel movie, and the point was, I thought, really powerful. And out of all of when you question, like, why is someone doing what they're doing. Her character kind of just has like the ultimate motivation that is totally not dependent on the politics of this superhero universe. You know what I mean? Which is a pretty interesting wild card to play into the whole equation.
Mm-hmm.
I think it may give her room, I mean, obviously, like, to come back into the fold or to exist in some way, right? That it's not just like, I'm interested. Y'all know much more about the whole universe than me. I kind of just take it one film or one show at a time. I just know I enjoy her playing that character quite a bit and hope that there's a plan there.
Yeah, it would be a shame to see. I've enjoyed Elizabeth Olsen quite a bit, and pretty much everything she's been in so far, so it'd be a shame to see it end there. I don't know. It's superhero movies. They bring everyone back, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. If this wasn't being written day to day, perhaps there's even more to say about the fact that this is a mother who wants her imaginary kids back, and in order to get them, or in order to have that narrative, she has to rein in someone called America. I mean,
yeah, there were a few lines where, again, the eye roll that we may do if it were a more quote unquote serious film or show or whatever. The way they used that name, it was fun sometimes.
Her star punch, going through the multiverse as a star.
Yeah. Let's make that the last bit because it's such a huge part of the movie. Were you okay with her, with a brand new character being the MacGuffin, so to speak?
A lot of these movies are built around a MacGuffin, so I think I was fine with it. You know, although they did have a lot of MacGuffins in this movie. They had like the 2 different books that they were trying to get to, and they had it was a little overstuffed.
We had America, the character, as one. Got to get her, got to control her, got to have her power. It felt, I mean, when you start picking at it, it really does seem like a movie that was written on the fly. But then you have these amazing things that aren't.
I have to say, I just loved just the visually the final fight with the zombie Doctor Strange. That was just fun. That just felt like pure fun. You know, like they let Sam Raimi have fun. And there were some other good moments like that. You know, it's impressive because, you know, Sam Raimi obviously knows how to make a movie. I can't imagine trying to put something together that big while you're getting revisions. You know,
the good parts of this movie seem to be good outside of any sort of script. Sam Raimi's visuals, Elizabeth Olsen.
I think I'd agree with that.
Her character's motivations, like all these things exist outside of this movie. Benedict Cumberbatch's acting was seemed to be pretty good considering some of the things I've read about how he wasn't even sure what he was supposed to be doing in certain scenes.
The big thing that proves your point is the Rachel McAdams character, who's supposed to be integral to the plot. It just doesn't, something about it just doesn't work for me. You know, it kind of comes out of nowhere. We have no connection. They don't really have any chemistry, and it just, that was a big part of the plot. And it's a big part of the plot. It just doesn't click, you know?
But I'm with Adam as he began. It still was kind of fun to watch.
These are well put together movies, you know? They know how to give the people what they want. A lot of
they're
times.
Spending a ton of money on how something looks and feels cohesively, but they need to break down and also put $1 down on a rider.
I feel like that would be the biggest, like if we went back to the original run of these films and beat them with what's coming out now, by and large, the writing would feel so much tighter on that the foundation laying stuff from this generation of Marvel. Don't you think?
Give me an example of what you mean.
if you want to go to the Iron Mans or even the first Doctor Strange movie, it just feels like a much well-defined, muscular kind of script where things are happening for reasons, and it doesn't necessarily have to connect to a larger story. It's almost, maybe it's because I'm aware of everything else that's going on, but they have a tendency now to feel a bit overextended.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I was thinking even back to like the first Captain America or whatever, where it's more of a simple adventure movie.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, motivations are clear. You know, you got your good guys, got your bad guys.
I think they're trying really hard to set up young Avengers. You gotta put this character America in there somewhere. She just so happened to fall into Multiverse Doctor Strange movie because of her powers, I guess. But that heavily hinted that that's what they're wanting to set up for the next phase as young Avengers.
Which would be cool.
It'd be cool, yeah. Miss Marvel, America Chavez. We could list off more if my brain could work a little better, but there are a lot more dropped in smaller roles throughout this phase. I liked a lot of this movie.
Were you looking for, and did you enjoy the Bruce Campbell cameo, or was it just like, this means absolutely nothing to me?
I know about it.
I'm curious. Okay.
Yeah, I know about his cameos in Sam Raimi movies. I just don't care.
I love Bruce Campbell, so.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, he seems fun.
It was fun seeing him. Yeah. I mean, he's not like the world's greatest actor or anything, but he always seems like he's having fun when he's doing what he's doing. And right. I've enjoyed him, and he was great in The Evil Dead and stuff like that. And actually, this is neither here nor there, but there was I think a Showtime show called Ash versus Evil Dead where he gets and he's great in it. He's really funny. I was kind of pleased to see the cameo was pleasing.
Yeah, Pizza. What's his name? Pizza Pete? What was it? Something?
Pizza Pete.
Oh, was it?
I kind of thought, this may just be me, I kind of thought it was an Evil Dead reference with him attacking himself. You know, because in Evil Dead, his hand turns evil and he has to fight himself. And
right. Yeah,
so I thought that was kind of fun.
I got you. Yeah, that does make sense now. All right. Well, no show next week. We hope everyone has a good 4th of July. No Dilly Bar going to be given out, so go buy your own. We'll return in 2 weeks to discuss the end of Stranger Things 4. You can bet on that. Probably something else. We'll figure it out. Everybody have a good holiday, and we'll talk to you later.